We are cutting across to Capitol Hill. Will this be Barack Obama's swan song, or will it be the beginning of a new term?
Before
Let's hear his wife talking at Capitol Hill.
You all saw what I saw. So you did all this crazy stuff. You showed up at campaign offices here in Des Moines and offices all over the state. More importantly, you opened your homes. You held caucus trainings. You marched with us at the Jefferson-Jackson dinner. And then on a cold January night, you stood up for Barack because you knew that he would stand up for you. And over these past 4 years, our family has been truly blessed by all of the love and support and prayers that we have received from every corner of this country. And Barack has been truly blessed to have all of you by his side as we have worked together to bring that change we can believe in. It is an honor and a privilege to serve this nation. Just know that. And tomorrow, we get the chance to finish what we started here in Iowa. Tomorrow, all across the state, all across this country, we will line up and vote in libraries and community centers and school gyms. We're going to knock on doors until our fingers are numb. We're going to make calls until our voices are hoarse. And we won't stop until every voice and every last vote is counted. And we will do it. We will do it because while we have come so far, we know that there is so much more to do. And what we really, truly know is that we cannot turn back now. We need to keep moving this country forward. So that means that we need to reelect the man who has been fighting for us every single day. My husband, the love of my life, the President of the United States, Barack Obama.
Less you find out as you go, and you're much more loved than I do now. And the only thing sitting by fireflies, advertising in the skies, the people like us. And
hello, Iowa! Tomorrow, Iowa. Tomorrow, from the granite of New Hampshire to the Rockies of Colorado, from the coastlines of Florida to Virginia's rolling hills, from the valleys of Ohio to these Iowa fields, we will keep America moving forward. I've come back to Iowa one more time to ask for your vote. I came back to ask you to help us finish what we've started. Because this is where our movement for change began. Right here right here, right behind these bleachers, is the building that was home to our Iowa headquarters in 2008. I was just inside, and it brought back a whole lot of memories. This is where some of the first young people who joined our campaign set up shop, willing to work for little pay and less sleep, because they believed that people who love their country can change it. This was where so many of you who shared that belief came to help. You know, when the heat didn't work for the first week or so, some of you brought hats and gloves for the staff. These poor kids, they weren't prepared. When the walls inside were bare, one of you painted a mural to lift everybody's spirits. When we had a steak fry to march to, when we had a JJ dinner to fire up, you brought your neighbors and you made homemade signs. When we had calls to make, teachers and nurses showed up after work, already bone tired, but staying anyway, late into the night. And you welcomed me and Michelle into your homes. And you picked us up when we needed a lift. And your faces gave me new hope for this country's future. And your stories filled me with resolve to fight for you every single day I set foot in the Oval Office. You inspired us. I want to take this opportunity to say one thing to all the young people and not so young people who've given so much to this campaign over the years. Those of you who haven't done this just for me, but for each other. For a laid-off family member, for a sick child, for a fallen friend. To all of you who've lived and breathed the hard work of change, I want to thank you. You took this campaign and you made it your own, and you organized yourselves block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, county by county, starting a movement that spread across the country, a movement made up of young and old and rich and poor and black and white, Latino, Asian, Native American, gay, straight, Democrats, Republicans, who believe we've all got something to contribute, that we all deserve a shot at our own American dream. And when the cynics said we couldn't, you said, yes, we can. You said, yes, we can, and we did. Against all odds, we did. We didn't know what challenges would come when we began this journey. We didn't know how deep the crisis would turn out. But we knew we would get through those challenges the same way this nation always has. With that determined, unconquerable American spirit that says, no matter how bad the storm gets, no matter how tough times are, we're all in this together. We rise or fall as one nation and as one people. That's the spirit that carried us through the trials and tribulations of the last 4 years. In 2008, we were in the middle of 2 wars and the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. And today, our businesses have created nearly 5.5 million new jobs. The American auto industry is back. Home values are on the rise. We're less dependent on foreign oil than any time in the last 20 years. We've doubled the production of clean energy because of the service and sacrifice of our brave men and women in uniform. The war in Iraq is over. The war in Afghanistan is ending. Al-Qaeda's on the run. Osama bin Laden is dead. We've made real progress these past 4 years. But Iowa, we're here tonight because we've got more work to do. We're not done yet on this journey. We've got more road to travel. As long as there's a single American who wants a job but can't find one, as long as there are families working harder but still falling behind, as long as there's a child anywhere in Des Moines, anywhere in Iowa, anywhere in this country, languishing in poverty, barred from opportunity, our work isn't done. Our fight for change goes on. Because we know this nation cannot succeed without a growing, thriving middle class and sturdy ladders for everybody who's willing to work to get into that middle class. Our fight goes on because America's always done best when everybody's got a fair shot and everybody's doing their fair share. And everybody plays by the same rules. The people of Iowa understand that. That's what we believe. That's why you elected me in 2008. And Iowa, that's why I'm running for a second term as President of the United States. Now, the choice you make tomorrow, and you understand this, Iowans, you guys pay attention. The choice you make is not just between two candidates or parties. It's a choice between two different visions of America, who we are, what we believe, what we care about. It's a choice between going back to the top-down policies that caused the mess we've been fighting our way out of for 4 years, or moving forward to a future that's built on a strong and growing middle class. And Iowa, you know me as well as anybody. You've seen a lot of me these last 6 years. And you know what? You may not agree with every decision I've made. Michelle doesn't. There may be times where you've been frustrated at the pace of change. I promise you, so have I. But I tell you what, you know what I believe. You know where I stand. You know I tell the truth. You know I'll fight for you and your families every single day as hard as I know how. And that's why when we talk about change, we know what real change looks like because we fought for it. We've got the scars to prove it. I've got the gray hair to show it. I wasn't this gray when I first showed up in Iowa. And sometimes it's been hard. Sometimes it's been frustrating. We understand that. But what we also know is that when we decide to make a difference, when Americans come together, determined to bring about change, nobody can stop us. We cannot be stopped. And after all we've been through together, after all that we've fought through together, we cannot give up on change now. We know what real change looks like. Change is a country where every American has a shot at a great education, where we recruit new teachers, train new workers, bring down tuition so that no one in this country is forced to give up their dream of a college education. Change comes when we live up to this country's legacy of innovation by investing in the next generation of technology and manufacturing. Instead of subsidizing oil company profits, I want to support energy jobs of tomorrow. And Iowa knows about clean energy and biodiesel and wind turbines that will free this country from the grip of foreign oil. I don't want a tax code that rewards companies for creating jobs overseas. I want to reward companies that create jobs right here in America. That's what changes Iowa. Change is turning the page on a decade of war so we can do some nation building here at home. Repairing our roads and our bridges, making our schools state of the art, putting our veterans back to work because nobody who fights for this country's freedom should have to fight for a job or a roof over their heads when they come home. That's what we're fighting for. That's why we're not done. Change is a future where we reduce our deficit by asking the wealthiest Americans to go back to the tax rates they paid when Bill Clinton was in office. We'll cut out spending we don't need. But as long as I'm president, we're not going to turn Medicare into a voucher just to pay for another millionaire's tax cut. We're not going to kick a kid off a Head Start just to pay for a millionaire's tax cut. Because our budget reflects our priorities and our values. And we know what our future requires. We know what real change is. You helped teach me that here in Iowa. And you know, what you also know is that change isn't easy. Remember, a lot of you, showed up to town hall meetings back in 2007, 2008, and I used to talk about change, but I also said, I'm not just talking about changing presidents. I'm not just talking about changing parties. I'm talking about changing our politics. I told you I ran because your voices had been shut out of our democracy for way too long by special interests and politicians who will do whatever it takes to keep things just the way they are. And we've seen over the last 4 years, the status quo in Washington, they are powerful and they have fought us every step of the way. When we tried and succeeded in reforming our healthcare system, they spent millions trying to stop us. When we tried and succeeded in reforming Wall Street, they spent millions to push us back, and we kept on going. But those were tough fights. And what the protectors of the status quo in Washington are counting on now is that you'll get worn down by all the squabbling. You'll get fed up with the dysfunction. You'll give up on the change we fought for. You'll walk away and lead them to make decisions that affect every American. In other words, their bet is on cynicism. But Iowa, you taught me to bet on you. You taught me to bet on hope. I'll work with anybody of any party to move this country forward. And if you want to break the gridlock in Congress, you'll vote for leaders who feel the same way. Whether they're Democrats or Republicans or independents, the kind of Iowa leaders you've always had. Tom and Christy Vilsack and Tom Harkin and Leonard Boswell and Bruce Braley and my great friends Tom Miller and Mike Fitzgerald. But there's some principles you got to fight for. There are times where you've got to take a stand. If the price of peace in Washington is cutting deals to kick students off of financial aid or get rid of funding for Planned Parenthood or let insurance companies discriminate against kids with pre-existing conditions or eliminate health care for millions on Medicaid who are poor or elderly or disabled, I won't pay that price. That's not a deal I will make. That's not bipartisanship. That's not change. That's surrender to the same forces of the status quo that have squeezed middle-class families for way too long. And Iowa, I'm not ready to give up on the fight. I've got a lot more fight left in me. But to wage that fight on behalf of American families, I need you to still have some fight in you too.